When honesty breaks a dream partner's feedback that almost ruined my life. Have you ever been talked out of your dream by the person you love most, under the banner of honesty? This is how one conversation almost ended my writing career before it began. When dreams meet honesty. Intrigue-based hook. Imagine chasing your biggest dream, pouring your heart and soul into it, only for the one person you trust most to inadvertently shatter it. My partner's honest feedback felt like a punch to the gut, and I'm still picking up the pieces. You won't believe how one conversation changed everything. Have you ever received constructive criticism that felt more like a personal attack, especially from someone you love? I thought my partner was helping me, but their honest feedback ended up being the most expensive advice I've ever taken. This isn't just about a dream lost. It's about the hidden cost of unfiltered advice and how it can derail your entire life. Dreams are fragile things. They don't break like glass, loudly and suddenly. They erode quietly, like sand slipping away with the tide. I learned this the hard way, not from a stranger, not from a critic hiding behind a screen, but from the very person I thought would hold me steady while I built mine. For as long as I can remember, I wanted to be a writer. Not the casual kind who scribbles in notebooks or posts random thoughts online, but the kind whose words become worlds, whose stories find homes in the minds of strangers. I lived and breathed sentences. Every scrap of paper in our apartment carried the skeleton of an idea. Every late-night walk was a brainstorm. Every free hour bent toward turning nothing into something. And then there was Sam, my partner, my best friend, the one who knew every version of me. From the insecure student who stayed up until dawn drafting half-finished chapters, to the dreamer who sketched cover ideas on napkins. Sam was supposed to be my anchor, my cheerleader, my co-dreamer. When the opportunity came, a small publisher offering to review my manuscript, I thought my life was finally tipping toward the extraordinary. I poured every ounce of myself into that draft. Nights without sleep, weekends at the library, endless cups of coffee that tasted like hope. I didn't just write a story, I stitched together pieces of myself. By the time I typed the last word, I was shaking with exhaustion and joy. I printed 2 copies, one for the publisher, and one for Sam. Be honest, I told them, sliding the stack of pages across the table. I need to know what you think before I send it off. They smiled, soft, reassuring, the way someone does when they know they're being handed something precious. I didn't realize I was also handing them a hammer. The next evening, Sam sat at the table with my manuscript. Their face was unreadable as they flipped the pages, occasionally jotting something in the margins. I hovered like a nervous shadow, making tea, pretending to scroll my phone, anything to keep my hands from trembling. Finally, they set the stack down and looked at me. "It's okay," Sam said. 2 words. Just 2. But they landed harder than any rejection letter ever could. "Okay," I echoed, my throat tightening. Sam sighed, running a hand through their hair. "Don't get me wrong. It's good, but it's not great. The dialogue drags. The pacing feels off. Honestly, it reads more like a diary than a novel. And if you're going to chase publishing, you need to be ready for harsher feedback than this." The words blurred, a blur that sounded like you're not good enough. I tried to swallow it. "So you think I shouldn't send it?" Sam shrugged. "I just don't want you to embarrass yourself. Maybe keep it as practice. Start something new, with more structure. Something publishable. Embarrass myself." The phrase echoed like glass breaking. I nodded numbly, but inside, something folded. All those nights, all those words, all that fire, I felt it doused in a single bucket of cold water. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Sam's words replayed over and over, burrowing deeper. I had asked for honesty, hadn't I? I had told them to be real. So why did it feel like betrayal? Why did it sting worse than any stranger's review could have? By morning, I made a decision. I wouldn't send the manuscript. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I tucked it into a drawer, shut it tight, and told myself it was for the best. But dreams don't die quietly when you suffocate them. They twist, they fester, they leave shadows. And as much as I wanted to believe Sam had saved me from embarrassment, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just buried the best part of myself alive. For weeks, I went through the motions. Work, chores, pretending. Sam seemed relieved, like they'd done me a favor. "You'll thank me one day," they said, kissing my forehead. But gratitude never came. Instead, something else did, an email. From the publisher. A reminder, we're still expecting your manuscript. Please confirm if you'd like us to review it. My hands shook as I read it. A door was open. A chance was waiting. And the only thing standing between me and it was the echo of my partner's words. Embarrass yourself. I stared at the screen, torn between two choices, hit send or hit delete. I thought I knew what I'd choose. But then came the conversation that shattered not just my dream, but my trust. The weight of honesty. The email sat in my inbox like a ticking clock. We're still expecting your manuscript. 10 simple words, yet they pulsed like a heartbeat, reminding me that a door was still open, if only I had the courage to walk through it. But courage had become a stranger. Every time I reached for the mouse, I heard Sam's voice in my head. Don't embarrass yourself. It's not ready. Start something new. I told myself Sam was protecting me, that their words came from love. But late at night, lying awake, I began to wonder, was love supposed to sound like fear? I didn't answer the email. Not that day, not the next. A week passed, then two. The opportunity shrank from possibility to afterthought. I buried myself in work, telling colleagues I was taking a break from writing. It sounded casual, temporary, but inside, it felt permanent. Sam seemed pleased. You're less stressed now, they said, handing me coffee one morning. See, I knew shelving that draft was the right choice. I smiled faintly, though it felt like my lips had forgotten the shape. But dreams don't stay buried. They resurface in small ways. In the envy that prickles when you see another debut novel announced online. In the ache that rises when a bookstore display whispers this could have been you. I found myself scrolling through social media at midnight, reading posts from writers I'd once considered peers. They celebrated finished drafts, book deals, glowing reviews. And every success they shared felt like a knife. Not because I begrudged them, but because I had been one email away from standing among them. One night, I snapped. Do you realize what you did? I asked Sam, the words spilling out after weeks of silence. They looked up from their laptop, startled. What are you talking about? My manuscript, I said. The publisher. I didn't send it because of you. Because you told me it wasn't good enough. Sam frowned. I never said you weren't good enough. I said the draft wasn't. There's a difference. It doesn't feel like a difference, I shot back. Do you know what it cost me not to send it? That was my dream, Sam. My chance. And I let it go because you said I'd embarrass myself. Their expression hardened. And you would have, Maya. I was trying to protect you. You're too sensitive to handle rejection. You would have fallen apart if they said no. At least this way, you're not humiliated. The words landed like stones. Protect me. Sensitive. Humiliated. Each one another reason not to trust my own strength. I felt tears prick my eyes, but anger burned hotter. You don't get to decide what I can or can't handle. You don't get to clip my wings and call it love. Sam slammed their laptop shut. You asked for honesty. Don't blame me for giving it to you. I retreated to the bedroom, slamming the door, heart pounding. Honesty. That word echoed, twisted. Was it honesty, or was it cruelty dressed in sincerity? The next morning, I opened my drawer and pulled out the manuscript. The pages smelled faintly of ink and dust, as though they'd aged decades in the weeks they'd been hidden. My fingers shook as I flipped through them, the words blurring with regret. And then, like a cruel joke, I noticed something. On the title page, in Sam's handwriting, was a note I hadn't seen before. Too raw, too personal, not for public eyes. I stared at it, my chest tightening. It wasn't just feedback, it was a verdict. The pages felt heavier in my hands, as though the ink itself carried judgment. That night, I placed the manuscript back in the drawer. But this time, it wasn't silence that closed it. It was fury, because somewhere deep down, I knew. If I didn't find a way to reclaim this dream, I would lose more than a manuscript. I would lose myself. The cost of constructive criticism. The weeks that followed were like walking through fog, familiar streets, familiar routines, but with everything muffled, distant. Work emails, grocery runs, small talk with neighbors, it all blurred. What cut through the haze was the sound of Sam's voice whenever they spoke about my writing. It wasn't cruel, not directly, but it carried a weight that pressed me down. Have you thought about something more practical? They'd ask. Maybe a certification program? Something that could actually pay. Practical. That word became a weapon. Suddenly, writing wasn't just a dream, it was a liability. Bills began piling higher than before. My day job barely covered rent, groceries, and the unexpected car repair that ate him months' savings. Sam's income helped, but every dollar seemed to come with commentary. "You know," Sam said one night as we paid bills, "if you weren't pouring so much time into a dead-end manuscript, maybe you'd have a side gig that brought in money." I bit my tongue until it bled. It wasn't just about money. It was about the unspoken accusation, "Your dream is draining us." I wanted to scream, "I gave it up because of you." But instead, I nodded, stacked the bills neatly, and wondered how silence had become my second language. The breaking point came at a dinner party. Friends gathered around the table, laughter bubbling, wine glasses clinking. Someone asked me casually, "How's the book coming?" I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. Sam answered for me, "Oh, that?" She shelved it. Honestly, it wasn't ready for the world. I told her to focus on something else. Laughter continued around the table. Conversations picked up, but in my ears, everything muted. Not ready for the world. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the tub, fists clenched. My face burned, not with shame, but with fury. Sam hadn't just criticized me in private. They had announced my failure publicly, like a headline. And yet no one questioned it. Because Sam said it with confidence, with authority, as if they were the arbiter of my worth. That night, after the guests left, I confronted them. "Why would you say that? Why would you tell people I wasn't ready?" Sam looked genuinely confused. "Because it's true. I was saving you from awkward questions. Don't be so dramatic." "Dramatic?" My voice cracked. "You're not saving me, Sam. You're erasing me." They sighed, exasperated. "You're twisting everything." "I'm being honest." "You can't handle honesty." Something inside me snapped. "No," I whispered, shaking. "I can handle rejection. I can handle edits, critique, rewrites. What I can't handle is you deciding my dream is worthless before the world even sees it." Sam stared, stunned into silence. For once, the script was broken. The next morning, I dug the manuscript out again. The note in Sam's handwriting glared up at me. Too raw, too personal, not for public eyes. But suddenly, those words weren't a verdict. They were fuel. Raw, personal, not for public eyes. Maybe that was exactly why it mattered. Because stories that cut deep enough to scare even the people closest to us are the ones that need to be told. I sat down with my laptop and opened the draft. My hands trembled, but this time not from fear, from defiance. And then I opened my email. The publisher's reminder still sat unanswered. I typed 2 words, "attached manuscript," and hit send. For the first time in months, I felt alive. When Sam came home, they noticed the glow on my face. What happened? I met their eyes. I sent it. Their jaw tightened. "You what?" I sent the manuscript. Silence stretched. Then Sam shook their head, almost pitying. "You'll regret it. When they reject you, you'll remember I tried to protect you." But I didn't feel regret. For once, I felt something close to freedom. What I didn't know was that this single act of rebellion would set in motion consequences I could never have imagined. Consequences far costlier than rejection. Because sometimes, the most expensive advice isn't just what you follow. It's what you defy. The price of truth. 3 days later, the email arrived. I stared at the notification, my heart hammering so hard it drowned out every sound in the room. The subject line, "Regarding your manuscript submission." For a full minute, I couldn't move. My hands hovered above the trackpad, trembling. Sam sat on the couch, scrolling their phone, oblivious to the storm about to hit. Finally, I clicked. The message was brief, but it split me open. "Thank you for your submission. While your manuscript requires revisions, we believe it has strong potential. We would like to move forward with an editorial review and discuss next steps." I gasped, covering my mouth. Potential. Next steps. It wasn't a yes, not yet, but it wasn't the no I had been taught to fear. It was a door opening wider. "Sam," I whispered, "they want it. They actually want it." Their head snapped up. "What?" "The publisher. They see potential. They're offering an editorial review." Instead of joy, their expression hardened. "That doesn't mean anything. It's just a polite rejection. They'll string you along, ask for changes, and in the end, they'll pass. Don't get your hopes up." I stared, stunned. "Can't you just be happy for me? For once, I'm being realistic," they said. "I'm protecting you from disappointment." "No," I said, voice shaking but firm. "You're protecting yourself from having to admit you were wrong." The days that followed turned our apartment into a battlefield. Every time I sat at my desk, Sam hovered, offering unsolicited advice. Cut that scene, it drags. Your protagonist is unlikable. Do you really think readers care about this? At first, I tried to absorb it, to separate useful feedback from poison. But soon I realized it wasn't feedback at all. It was sabotage disguised as honesty. One night, I finally snapped. Do you hear yourself? I shouted. Every word you say chips away at me. You're not helping, you're tearing me down. What? Sam's face flushed. Because this isn't going to work out. Because you're chasing something impossible while we're drowning in bills and responsibilities. Because I can't stand watching you throw yourself into a dream that's going to leave us with nothing. The silence that followed was colder than any rejection letter. Finally, I asked the question I had been too afraid to voice. Then why are you with me, Sam? Because the person you fell in love with, the dreamer, the writer, that's who I've always been. If you can't love that part of me, you can't love me. They looked away, didn't answer. That silence was louder than any words. The next morning, I packed the manuscript into my bag and left for a cafe downtown. For the first time, I wrote without Sam's shadow over my shoulder. The pages flowed again, messy and imperfect, but alive. Each sentence felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that I had almost lost. When I sent the revisions to the publisher, I did it without telling Sam. For once, the dream was mine alone, not theirs to dissect. Weeks later, another email came. We'd like to offer a contract for publication. I cried, shaking, reading the words over and over. Not because the dream had come true, but because I had almost let it die in the hands of someone who claimed to love me. That night, I told Sam. They stared at me like I had betrayed them. So you went behind my back. No, I said softly. I finally went for myself. Their expression crumbled, but I didn't wait for another lecture. I walked into the bedroom, pulled out a suitcase, and began to pack. Because sometimes, the price of truth is not the dream. It's the relationship you realize was never built to support it. Months have passed since then. The book is still in edits, not yet on shelves. But every day, I wake up knowing I fought for it. For me, Sam has gone from my life. Their absence is sharp, but it is lighter than their presence ever was. I don't regret leaving. What I regret is how long I believed their honesty was love. Because love doesn't tell you to hide your fire. Love stands beside you while you burn brighter. And now, as I hold the contract in my hands, I know this. Sometimes the most expensive advice you'll ever take is the advice that convinces you to stop. But sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is to stop listening.